leave here changed. Amen.
Amen. All right, so before we get started, I want to say thank you to everybody who showed up yesterday and helped us. We cleaned the floors and sealed them in here. We cut down trees outside. We painted the kitchen. So to everyone who came and helped, I appreciate it. Thank you. You have no idea how much we appreciate the help you've done. So thank you.
Antes de empezar, quiero agradecerle a todos los que se hicieron presentes el día de ayer para hacer trabajos en la iglesia, gracias a los que limpiaron los pisos, los que le dieron brillo, lo sellaron, gracias por los árboles que cortaron, gracias por la cocina que la pintaron y la arreglaron, se les agradece mucho, gracias.
Okay, so last week we started a series in Acts. It's called The Story Goes On, and we looked last week at the characteristics that were shared by the first church that we see in the book of Acts.
La semana pasada estuvimos mirando el comienzo de la iglesia, y las características principales que esta iglesia tenía. Vamos a continuar este domingo viendo eso.
And what we saw there was that they were given this mission to be God's witnesses of what Jesus had done. And it says here that they were to take the mission to Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the ends of the earth.
Y miramos la semana pasada lo que compartían esta iglesia. Se les había dado una misión de ser testigos de Dios en Jerusalén, en Judea, en Samaria y en los confines de la tierra.
And what we have to understand about this is we read the book of Acts. The early church, they took this mission seriously.
Sí, y lo que vemos es que esta iglesia primera tomó esta misión seriamente.
And if they took it so seriously, then we should in turn be taking the same mission as seriously as we can as a church.
Y quiero que vean esto, si la iglesia primera tomó en serio esta misión, nosotros como iglesia también debemos de tomar en serio esta misión.
And this is the second of the last ones before we get to Paul and Paul's missions, that we're going to look at kind of the overview of what happened in these first 6 to 8 chapters of Acts.
Y lo que vamos a ver en el resumen de estos primeros capítulos de Hechos es lo que estaba sucediendo en ese momento.
And here's what we find happens in these first few chapters. We find that the gospel is being spread throughout Jerusalem.
Y lo que encontramos en estos capítulos, vemos la historia de cómo se extendió este evangelio.
We find that Peter and John multiple times are arrested for sharing their faith.
Vemos aquí cómo los apóstoles empezaron a predicar y algunos de ellos fueron arrestados.
We find the church coming together on a regular basis, praying for boldness in the face of the persecution that they were facing.
Fueron arrestados. Vemos a la iglesia cómo se unió para orar con valentía frente a la persecución.
They were coming together and there was miracles being performed on a daily basis.
Se unían estos discípulos y milagros eran hechos a través de ellos.
And what we saw is unprecedented growth happening in that church through those first few chapters.
Y lo que vemos es un crecimiento sin precedentes en esta iglesia primitiva.
There's a verse, Acts 6:7, and I think this verse right here sums up what God was doing, the Holy Spirit was doing in the hearts of people during that time.
Y vemos en Hechos capítulo 6, nos da la idea de cómo se movía el Espíritu Santo en las vidas de estas personas.
It says this, it says, and the word of God continued to increase, and the number of disciples multiplied greatly in Jerusalem, and a great many of the priests became obedient to the faith.
Y dice, y la palabra del Señor crecía en número y de los discípulos se multiplicaban grandemente en Jerusalén. También muchos de los sacerdotes obedecían a la fe.
So 7 years into the birth of the church, and the words used to describe it is increasing, multiplication, and even greater than that, there were Jewish leaders coming to the faith over and over and over.
En 7 años después del nacimiento de la iglesia, y la descripción dice que aumentaba, se multiplicaba y muchos líderes judíos llegaban a la fe en Jesús.
And up until this point, the persecution that they were receiving was a lot of being imprisoned. So they were put in jail for sharing their faith.
Y hasta este punto la Biblia dice que la persecución había aumentado.
But
Los
in-
ponían en la cárcel.
But in chapter 7, we see it change a little bit, and that's when a man by the name of Stephen comes on the scene.
Pero la cosa cambia después en el capítulo 7 y fue un hecho que cambió lo que sucedió en la iglesia.
And what happened with Stephen is Stephen was chosen as one of the 7 deacons to help take care of the needs of the widows and those that were in need of the church in the church that day.
Y quiero que vean, Esteban fue uno de los diáconos que la iglesia escogió para que sirvieran a las viudas y a los necesitados.
And we don't know why they singled him out, but the Jewish leaders of the time decided that they were going to accuse him of blasphemy against God and against Moses.
Y lo que sucede aquí es que Esteban, ese diácono que habían elegido, los líderes religiosos lo acusaron de blasfemia contra Dios y contra Moisés.
And what we got to understand about this time is that to do that, if you're accused of that, that is the huge no-no. You do not do that. And he was immediately taken before the Sanhedrin, the Jewish leaders at the time.
Y aunque no fue cierto, pero los líderes religiosos lo acusaron de esto, lo acusaron de blasfemar contra Dios y contra Moisés. Y en ese entonces blasfemar contra Dios y contra Moisés era un no, eso no se permite. Y lo llevaron y lo acusaron de blasfemia contra Dios y contra Moisés.
And although these things were completely made up, there was no truth to it, he was taken before them, and eventually the Jewish people drug him out into the city streets, and they stoned him to death, and he was the first martyr that we see in the Christian church.
Y entonces, aunque estas cosas eran falsas en contra de este líder, finalmente lo arrastraron fuera de la ciudad, lo apedrearon hasta la muerte, pero esto, bueno.
And this is where we pick up our story today, and we're going to look at Acts 8 and what happens immediately following Stephen's death.
Y entonces este es el cuadro, esta es la historia la cual vamos a estar estudiando, ¿verdad?
So let's read together the first 8 verses. And it says this, "And Saul approved of his execution, and there arose on that day a great persecution against the church in Jerusalem. And they were all scattered throughout the regions of Judea and Samaria, except the apostles. Devout men buried Stephen and made great lamentation over him. But Saul was ravaging the church and entering house after house. He dragged off men and women and committed them to prison."
Y dice en Hechos 8 del 1 al 3, dice, y Saulo consentía en su muerte. En aquel día hubo una gran persecución contra la iglesia que estaba en Jerusalén, y todos fueron esparcidos por la tierra de Judea y de Samaria, excepto los apóstoles, salvo los apóstoles, y hombres piadosos llevaron a enterrar a Esteban e hicieron gran llanto sobre él. Y Saulo asolaba la iglesia y entrando casa por casa arrastraba a hombres y a mujeres y los entregaba en la cárcel.
So what we see here is that Saul, who we know later, just 2 chapters later, becomes Paul and gives his life to Christ. But Saul, it says here, is ravaging the church.
Entonces lo que vemos aquí es que dice que Saulo, el que más tarde se convirtió en el apóstol Pablo, estaba allí. Y él y otros líderes estaban devastando a la iglesia en ese momento.
I mean, this man had just stood there and watched the execution of Stephen. And now we see that he's not just going around and causing trouble. He is bringing severe and extreme persecution upon the church and making sure that they stop sharing the gospel.
Y esto no fue, Saulo estaba ahí, y esto no era solamente burlarse de ellos o quitarle algunos derechos. Significa, estaban devastando, significa que era un severo y una extrema persecución la que estaban llevando a cabo contra la iglesia.
It would be as if someone walked through that door right now and started dragging us out one by our feet and putting us in prison because we are meeting together and worshiping God.
Eso significa que estaban haciendo algo como así, como que alguien entra por esa puerta, lo agarra de la mano y lo arrastra por ese pavimento y lo llevan a la cárcel por estar adorando a Dios.
And what happened next? We see that the apostles stayed in Jerusalem, but the rest of the Christians scattered throughout Judea and Samaria, running from the persecution that was happening.
Eso significa ¿qué sucedió? Que cuando estaba esta persecución, muchos de los cristianos salieron huyendo, tuvieron que salir huyendo, pero mientras iban huyendo, excepto los apóstoles que se quedaron en Jerusalén, los que iban huyendo, iban predicando el evangelio.
Let's continue reading. Verse 4, it says, Now those who were scattered went about preaching the word. Philip went down to the city of Samaria and proclaimed them to them the Christ. And the crowds with one accord paid attention to what was being said by Philip when they heard him and saw the signs that he did. For unclean spirits, crying out with a loud voice, came out of many who had them. And many who were paralyzed or lame were healed. So there was much joy in that city.
Dice, pero los que fueron esparcidos iban por todas partes anunciando el evangelio. Entonces Felipe descendió a la ciudad de Samaria, les predicaba a Cristo y la gente unánime escuchaba atentamente las cosas que decía Felipe, oyendo y viendo las señales que hacía, porque muchos que tenían espíritus inmundos salían estos dando grandes voces y muchos paralíticos y cojos eran sanados, así que había gran gozo en aquella ciudad.
And so what happens? They scatter, and it says they begin preaching the word, which simply meant this. They went and they shared the good news of Jesus. They shared the gospel with those in Samaria and Judea.
Sí, mientras ellos iban huyendo, iban predicando el evangelio.
In the face of great persecution, the Christians of that day stuck to their mission. They shared the gospel.
Ante la persecución, estos cristianos se apegaron a la misión de ser testigos de Dios.
Here's a picture of what was going on during this time. This right here is Judea, Samaria. You've got Jerusalem right here in the middle. That's Jerusalem, and they were spread throughout this pink and this green region.
Si se dan cuenta, ahí está el mapa y Judea está ahí en ese punto en medio y los que iban huyendo salían huyendo y casi en toda la ciudad fue predicada el evangelio.
And they walked around and they were sharing the gospel as they went, as they were fleeing persecution. They stuck to the mission that God had given them.
Mientras iban huyendo, ellos se apegaban a la misión, iban predicando.
I believe there's three things that this passage can teach us as a church on how we are to be living our lives every single day.
En este pasaje hay algunos principios que vamos a ver cómo debemos de vivir nuestra vida cristiana cada día.
Back in the 20s, there was a doctor by the name of Dr. Fleming.
En los años, back in the 20s,
Yeah.
en los años 20, un doctor llamado Fleming.
And the thing about Dr. Fleming is that he had been working on some stuff and he had left to go on vacation.
Dr. Fleming estaba trabajando en algunos experimentos y resulta que se fue de vacaciones.
And he comes back and he sees that his workbench and everything else is an absolute mess.
Y resulta que cuando regresa de sus vacaciones, encuentra que en la mesa donde él estaba trabajando, se encuentra con un relajo.
And so he had these petri dishes that he had been working on, something with staph infection was on it.
Y resulta que cuando llega y encuentra unas probetas, donde estaba haciendo sus experimentos, y encuentra ahí cosas cochinas.
Yeah. And he comes in and he realizes that there's some mold that has begun to grow on these, and he thinks that it's all messed up.
Y resulta que cuando llega y encuentra este relajo ahí, pensó moho creciendo y dijo, esto es una barbaridad.
Does anyone know what he found that day?
¿Alguien sabe lo que encontró ahí cuando regresó?
Anybody?
¿Alguien?
What? Penicillin. Okay, so here is a man who walks in, and can you imagine his frustration? He thinks that everything that he was working on is screwed up.
Y aquí tenemos un hombre que cuando regresa de sus vacaciones cree que todos los experimentos que había estado haciendo se arruinaron.
But instead of it all being messed up, he makes one of the greatest discoveries of all time, which it is estimated has saved between 80 million and 200 million people's lives and continues to save lives today.
Pero resulta que lo que encontró cuando regresó no fue un relajo, sino que fue una maravilla que ha salvado a más de 80,000 a 200,000 vidas y todavía está salvando hoy día.
Here's what he said later in an interview. This is the words that he says. He says, "When I woke up just after dawn on September 28, 1928, I certainly didn't plan to revolutionize all medicine by discovering the world's first antibiotic or bacteria killer. but I guess that's exactly what I did.
Y lo que descubrió fue la penicilina. Todos conocemos la penicilina. Y esto fue lo que él dijo. Cuando me desperté, justo después del amanecer, el 28 de septiembre de 1928, ciertamente no planeaba revolucionar toda la medicina al descubrir el primer antibiótico o asesino de bacterias del mundo. Pero supongo que eso fue exactamente lo que hice. Eso fue lo que dijo el doctor Fleming.
So a mess turned out to be one of the greatest life-saving discoveries of all time.
Entonces, un desastre que encontró el doctor Fleming resultó en ser una de las mejores sustancias para salvar vidas que jamás se haya descubierto.
Here's the deal. Did you know that God works exactly the same way?
Aquí está el trato. ¿Sabes que Dios hace exactamente eso con nuestras vidas?
What we see here in this passage is that God uses what was meant for evil for his good.
Lo que vemos aquí en este pasaje que acabamos de leer es que lo malo, lo malvado, Dios lo usa para bien.
Remember, it says, now those who were scattered went about preaching the word.
Recuerda lo que dice que los que salieron huyendo por la persecución estaban predicando.
Okay, so do you guys remember back to the mission we talked about at the beginning? The first one was what? Jerusalem. They've already done that. Check. It's all done. They've been doing it. It's been spreading. It's been growing in the city of Jerusalem.
¿Recuerdas la misión? ¿Cuál era la misión? Predicar en Jerusalén. Resulta que Jerusalén ya había sido predicada. Todos habían creído en Jerusalén.
And so what we see here is that because of the persecution, what happened? It pushed them from Jerusalem out to the next two places, Judea and Samaria.
Y resulta que como ya había sido predicado el evangelio en Jerusalén, la persecución los empujó a predicar en Samaria. ¿Y cuál seguía? Samaria y Judea. Ahí fueron.
And here just shortly we're going to see how it spreads from this very persecution out to the ends of the earth.
Y vemos cómo después de la persecución que fue predicado el evangelio en estas ciudades, se esparció por todo el mundo.
You see, the Jewish leaders saw what he was trying to do was they ramped up the persecution. Why? Because they thought by persecuting the church, they would shut up and they would no longer spread the gospel.
Lo que sucedió es que los líderes religiosos pensaban que al perseguirlos, al intimidarlos, la palabra de Dios ya no iba a ser predicada.
But little did they know that it was all part of God's plan to get his people out of Jerusalem and to continue the mission to Judea, Samaria, and the ends of the earth.
Pero no se daban cuenta que Dios los estaba usando a ellos para que el evangelio fuera predicado en Samaria, en Judea y en todas partes del mundo.
You know, it's funny because the early church, I think they understood this better than anyone, and that is that God is not surprised by anything that comes our way.
¿Sabes? La iglesia primera a lo mejor entendió esto, que nada sorprende a Dios. Todo lo hace Dios con un propósito.
And he will, listen to me, he will use anything, including persecution, for his good.
Déjame decirte que Él va a usar lo que sea, incluso la persecución, para llevar a cabo su plan.
Okay, so there's two applications here. The first one is this, that we need to understand that God will not allow anything to stop his church and the mission that they have been given.
El primer principio es que Dios no va a permitir nada para que estorbe el crecimiento y la predicación del evangelio.
I love how Jesus says it to Peter. This is what he tells Peter in Matthew. He says, the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. And he's talking about his church. The gates of hell will not prevail against the church.
Me encanta lo que le dijo Jesús a Pedro. Le dijo Jesús a Pedro, y las puertas del infierno no prevalecerán contra la iglesia.
God has given his church the mission to share the gospel to the ends of the earth, and there is nothing that can happen to us that is going to stop that and prevent that, because it is God's plan on this earth.
Jesucristo le dio la misión a la iglesia de que predicar el evangelio, y no existe nada que pueda detener la predicación del evangelio, ni siquiera el infierno.
But the second thing that this applies to us is this, and that is that God can use everything in your life for the good.
Y el otro principio es que Dios va a utilizar lo que sea para bien en ti.
Romans 8:28, it says this, and it's often a misquoted verse. It says, "And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to His purpose."
Dice en Romanos 8:28, y sabemos que a los que aman a Dios, todas las cosas les ayudan a bien. Esto a los que conforme a su propósito son llamados.
We often hear this verse, and we think that this verse is telling us that nothing bad is going to ever happen to Christians.
Cuando leemos este versículo pensamos que ninguna cosa mala nos va a pasar porque somos cristianos.
It's the opposite. What it's saying is that whatever happens, no matter good or bad, God will bring it together in your life for the good of His plan for your life.
Entonces es lo contrario. Esto quiere decir que aún las cosas malas pueden servir para tu bien.
Your
Cosas-
brokenness,
Tu quebrantamiento,
your heartache,
tu corazón dolido,
your pain,
tu dolor,
your joys,
tu gozo,
your difficulties.
tus dificultades.
God will use it all for His purpose if you will allow it.
Dios lo va a usar para su propósito, para tu bien, si tan solo lo dejas.
God can use all of it to bring His name glory.
Dios lo va a usar todo para traer gloria a su nombre.
And here's the deal. There is nothing that you've gone through in the past, nothing that you're going to go through in the future that is going to surprise God.
Y nada de lo que has pasado en el pasado, nada de lo que pases en el futuro, toma a Dios por sorpresa.
Trust Him. He is a good Father, and He loves to give good gifts, and He loves to work everything together for your good.
Confía en Él, Él es un buen padre, y Él quiere que todo lo que pasa en tu vida sea para bien.
Second thing that we learn here is that God uses ordinary people to share the gospel.
Y otro principio que vemos aquí es que Dios usa gente ordinaria para llevar a cabo su plan, su propósito.
You noticed what happened here is the persecution ramped up. The apostles, those that were supposed to spread the church, stayed, and everybody else scattered to Judea and Samaria.
Vemos aquí que los apóstoles, los que debieran de haber esparcido el evangelio, se quedaron ahí, pero la gente ordinaria fueron los que fueron y esparcieron el evangelio.
And today we could look at the incredible boldness of those apostles staying there in the face of persecution, standing in Jerusalem and not going anywhere. But we're going to look at the people who went out to Judea and Samaria.
Pero vemos aquí que los apóstoles se quedaron ahí, pero los demás fueron esparcidos y iban predicando el evangelio.
The amazing part about it is they didn't just run off, scared for their lives, and bunker down and stay away from people. They went and they shared the gospel.
Y lo maravilloso es que no solamente iban huyendo, no solamente se fueron huyendo, sino que mientras iban huyendo iban predicando el evangelio.
The next two stories that we read about in chapter 8 are by the man by the name of Philip, who shared the gospel and had people come to know Christ.
Y la siguiente historia que vamos a ver es la historia de Felipe, cómo Felipe empezó a predicar.
Here's the deal about Philip. Philip was not one of the apostles.
Felipe no era uno de los apóstoles.
He didn't write a book of the Bible.
Él no escribió ningún libro en la Biblia.
He isn't even mentioned all that often after this story.
Él ni siquiera es mencionado en las historias anteriores.
He wasn't one of the big three, Peter, John, or Paul.
Él no fue ninguno de los principales apóstoles como Pedro, Juan o Pablo.
He was just Philip, one of the seven chosen along with Stephen to take care of the needs of the church.
Él solamente era Felipe, uno de los que fue elegido para cuidar a las viudas y a los necesitados en la iglesia.
But God did extraordinary things through this man when he decided to stand up and be God's witness.
Pero lo que hizo Dios a través de su vida fue extraordinario, simplemente un hombre que estuvo dispuesto a dejarse usar por Dios.
Here's the deal. In the church today, we have made a terrible tragedy, and that is that we have told and taught that the job of the pastor and those with the gift of evangelism are to share the gospel, and everybody else is just to stay quiet.
Hoy en día, sabes, hemos creído que en la iglesia, el ambiente donde creemos que solamente el pastor y aquellos con el don de evangelismo son los responsables de llevar el evangelio.
we've kind of come up with this idea that certain people have been given this superpower to share the gospel and everybody else doesn't have it.
Hemos creído que estas personas que se les ha dado ese talento especial son los responsables de ir y llevar el evangelio.
But guess what? We've all been given the superpower because we all have the Holy Spirit living in us who has empowered us to be His witnesses.
Pero adivina qué, todos los que estamos aquí hemos sido capacitados y se nos ha dado el poder para ir y llevar el evangelio.
Okay, so we're going to play a game real quick. So I want everybody to stand up.
Quiero que se paren todos, vamos a jugar un juego.
I know, you're supposed to just sit there and be quiet the whole time. Okay, so here's
Yes,
what's going to
yes.
happen. The first game is this, part of the game, is I'm going to actually tell Julio over here, I'm going to tell him what my favorite food is. And
What-
I'm going to give him 30 seconds, and he's going to go one by one, and he's going to tell as many people as he can what my favorite food is. But if he tells you, you can't tell anybody else what it is, all right? Make sense?
Voy a pedirle a
Everybody
Julio,
else just gets to talk.
sí, voy a pedirle a Julio que diga cuáles son mis comidas favoritas. Y le voy a decir a él, y luego él va a ir y le va a decir a 3 personas, pero esas 3 personas no tienen que decir cuáles son las comidas favoritas. Creo que así le entendí.
Okay, everybody ready? Okay, so
To-
30 seconds, he's going to tell as many of you one by one how many, and you can't hear from anybody else, so only from Julio. All right, ready, go.
Julio va a ir y les va a decir. No. Se supone que era en secreto. Tiene 20 segundos. Tiene 20 segundos. ¿15 segundos? Ya. Perdón.
What my favorite type of food is. So that's my favorite food item, but I'm going to tell him my favorite type of food. He's going to go around, he's got 30 seconds to, he's going to start telling people individually. But after he has told you, you now have the responsibility of telling everybody else in the room as well. So as he tells you, you go out and you start telling everybody what my favorite food is. Don't say it out loud, just say it one by one.
Sí, voy a decirle a Colt, ahora él les va a decir a ustedes y cuando él les diga, ustedes también continúan diciéndolo. En
All right,
secreto.
go. Once he tells you, you go tell others. Go tell others. Go tell others. Go tell others. Walk and tell others. Go, go, go. Go tell others. That means walk and go tell them. You got 15 seconds.
15 segundos.
Five seconds.
5
4,
segundos. 4,
3,
3,
2,
2.
1.
Uno.
All right.
Okay.
Who got to hear the word from somebody in the room? Raise your hand.
Levanten la mano todos
If
los
you
que
heard it from
escucharon.
somebody.
Levanten la mano los que escucharon. ¿Cuál
Okay,
es su
pretty
comida?
much everybody in the room. Okay, so the first time we had 2 people. The second time we had the entire room. Which way is more effective in sharing it? One person sharing it or every single person who hears it?
En la primera tuvimos 2 que escucharon. En la segunda, ¿cuántos escucharon? Pero se dan cuenta, no solamente fue él el que lo compartió, fueron todos ustedes los que lo compartieron.
Now, you guys can have a seat.
Pueden sentarse.
I know that it is obvious in this game which way is faster, but the question that I have to ask you is that we know that the most effective way of sharing something is that everybody gets involved in sharing it. Why, as the church, have we stopped sharing the gospel that way?
Es obvio que este no va a ser un juego, pero se dan cuenta ustedes cuál es el más efectivo camino de compartir el evangelio. Es que todos lo hagan. Pero ¿qué pasó con la iglesia? ¿Por qué paramos de compartir el evangelio?
Okay, here's another question. Which is more effective? One witness to an event or 100 witnesses to an event?
¿Qué es más efectivo, que uno lo comparta o que 100 lo compartan?
100. Why?
¿Por qué?
It's more people. It's more believable. It's something for people to understand. Hey, this really did happen.
Es más gente, es más creíble que todos lo compartan.
Imagine how much faster and more effective the spread of the gospel would happen if we all took on the mission of sharing what God did in our lives.
Imagínate cuán efectivo es que todos compartamos el Evangelio.
You see, I would encourage you to continue to read through Acts 8 after you go home today and read the stories of what Philip did as he shared with those in Samaria.
Quiero animarte a que cuando terminemos aquí y llegues a tu casa empieces a leer lo que continuó haciendo Felipe cuando estaba predicando.
But beyond that, you got to understand this about Philip. He also shared the gospel with an Ethiopian man as he was walking down the road.
Y vas a descubrir, se va a adelantar, y vas a descubrir que Felipe le predicó a un eunuco de Etiopía.
He was baptized there on that road.
Se bautizó ahí en el camino.
And most theologians and most historians will tell you that it is more than likely that he was the one who took the gospel back to Africa and started the spread of the gospel in Africa.
Y muchos teólogos, muchos creen que este etíope que Felipe le predicó fue el que inició la iglesia en África.
Do you know what it was believed about Africa at that point in time?
Sorry, what?
It was believed that Africa was the end of the earth at that moment in time.
Sabes que África en ese tiempo se consideraba como que era el fin del mundo, hasta ahí llegaba el mundo.
So what we see here is that God used the persecution of the church to spread people out to Judea and Samaria to share the gospel.
Y lo que vemos ahí es que la iglesia estaba predicando en Samaria, en Judea,
And then he used a man by the name of Philip to share with an Ethiopian who took the gospel to what they believed was the ends of the earth at that moment in time.
y Dios utilizó a Felipe, a este hombre ordinario, para que le predicara al etíope y así el evangelio llegó hasta el fin del mundo.
And from there, the gospel continued to spread because one man and many decided to stand up and be his witness.
Y el evangelio sigue siendo predicado porque estos hombres y Felipe se dejó usar por Dios.
Here's the deal. You don't have to be a pastor or an evangelist or have some great biblical knowledge to be God's witness. He wants to use you.
Y aquí está un trato, mira, Dios te quiere usar a ti, no solamente al pastor y a los líderes.
You know what I love about this word, a witness, is that what does a witness do? A witness shares what they have experienced in their life.
La palabra testigo, ¿qué es lo que hace un testigo? Un testigo dice lo que él ha visto.
If God's life-saving power has changed you, then He wants you to share that with others.
Si el poder de Dios te ha salvado a ti y tú has visto lo que Dios ha hecho en tu vida, tú eres testigo de lo que Dios hace.
And then invite them to experience the same life-saving power of God.
Y puedes tú invitarlos a ellos para que Dios también haga el cambio que hizo en tu vida, en las vidas de ellos.
And then to wrap up, the last thing that we find here is that God's gospel is for all people.
Y aquí vemos que la palabra de Dios es para todos, para todos.
So we know that Philip went to Samaria, he shared the gospel with Samaritans, and the Samaritans came to know Christ.
Y aquí vemos entonces que Felipe fue a Samaria, Felipe predicó en Samaria y en Samaria escucharon el evangelio y conocieron a Cristo.
Here's the deal about Jews and Samaritans at this point. They hated each other.
Y este es lo que estaba sucediendo, ¿sabes? Los judíos y los samaritanos se odiaban en aquel
And
entonces.
this hatred went back thousands of years to the father of Jacob, Jacob and his 12 sons.
Y este odio se va muchísimos años atrás. Este odio comenzó con los hijos de Jacob.
Jews had no dealings with Samaritans at that point in time.
Los judíos y los samaritanos no hacían tratos entre ellos.
Most will tell you that this hatred between the Jews and Samaritans was bad as any race or cultural or language divide that we've ever had in human history.
Este odio era peor que el odio de las razas que tenemos hoy día, odio de los porque hablamos diferentes lenguajes.
So the gospel going to Samaria and Samaritans coming to know Christ and the Samaritans and the Jews who come to know Christ uniting as one big family showed us that the gospel is for all people.
Imagínense estos pueblos que se odiaban tanto, pero cuando el evangelio llegó a ellos se hicieron uno solo en Cristo.
It was the common bond. It was the thing that brought them together as one family.
Fue el imán, fue el glue que los unió, el evangelio.
So here's the question. Are you a part of that family? Do you truly believe that the gospel is for you as well?
¿Tú crees que el evangelio es para ti?
I don't care what you've done, what you think you've done, how bad you think you are, how much you think you don't deserve, or what some other Christian has told you in the past. The gospel, Jesus Christ dying on the cross, was for you.
No me importa lo que tú has hecho, no me importa lo que pienses que no mereces. Dios lo que hizo, lo hizo por ti.
And He wants you in His family. And we want you a part of God's family.
Y Dios te quiere aquí. Nosotros te queremos en la familia de Dios.
But here's the second part of this. You as an individual and us as a church has to take this part of the mission very, very seriously.
Pero tú como individuo y nosotros como iglesia debemos de tomar este mandato en serio.
God doesn't want us sharing a gospel that we believe is only for some people.
Dios no quiere que este evangelio que nosotros creamos que solamente solo para algunas personas.
You know, you may say, well, Pastor, we don't do that. But here's the deal. We often only share the gospel with those that are like us, or those that we believe are worthy of walking through the doors of our church.
Pero sabes, nosotros cometemos el error de compartirles el evangelio solamente a aquellas personas que se parecen con nosotros, que tienen algo en común con nosotros.
And as individuals and a church, I want us to understand that we are sharing a gospel that says God died, sent Jesus to die for all people, and that all people deserve the love of God.
Pero quiero que te lleves este mensaje. Lo que hizo Jesús lo hizo por todos, así que todos merecen escuchar el evangelio.
So as the band comes up and we're going to sing, this is the question that I want to ask us.
Mientras la banda pasa para tocar un canto, esta es la pregunta que te quiero hacer.
Are there people or groups of people in our community and in our city that we simply aren't sharing the gospel with or inviting to church because they don't look like us?
Hay gente aquí en tu comunidad, hay gente en tu vecindario, hay gente que tú conoces y piensas, no, con este no debo compartir el evangelio.
Or maybe on an individual level, this is a little different. Maybe there's somebody in your life you don't share the gospel with because there is a problem between you and them.
O en tu vida tienes a una persona que has tenido algún problema con él y dices, no, este no merece escuchar el evangelio.
Here's what this story tells us. The gospel can heal any dissension among people.
Esto es lo que dice el evangelio, que la palabra de Dios, el poder de Dios puede cambiar cualquier enemistad, cualquier disensión que haya entre tú y otra persona.
So as we sing, as we finish up this morning, I want to ask you this question. God wants to use you. Are you ready to be His witness in this world?
Y mientras la banda toca, yo quiero hacerte una pregunta. ¿Estás listo tú para dejarte usar por Dios?
Because look, we can do it one by one, and a few of us can do the work of what God's given us. But when we all stand up to be God's witness, guess what? The gospel will spread like a wildfire.
Porque podemos continuar como lo estamos haciendo, solamente algunos de nosotros hablando, solamente los líderes hablando. Pero déjame decirte que Dios quiere usarte a ti para que abarquemos más.
Let's pray.
Vamos a orar.
God, thank you for today.
Gracias por el día de
We
hoy.
thank you for your blessings and the way that you take care of us.
Gracias por las bendiciones y la manera como nos cuidas.
We thank you for your saving power that has come into our lives because of Jesus Christ.
Gracias por el poder salvador que vino a nosotros a través de Cristo Jesús.
And God, as your church, I pray that we will all commit to standing up and being the witness of the saving power that we have experienced.
Y como iglesia queremos comprometernos con esa misión de ir y llevar el evangelio a otros.
In your name we pray.
En
Amen.
tu nombre, Jesús, oramos.